Somebody asks me, well, how do I know if, what I'm doing is enough, if I'm doing too much? It's like, well, if you're tracking your data, specifically the resistance that you use and repetitions that you do, if you're tracking that over time and you're able to make improvements, then nobody on the planet can say what you're doing is
Mm.
wrong. I mean, obviously it's work because you're making progress. Our workouts, when this was introduced to me back in 1980, we did, I think the workout was somewhere around 18 exercises. And that raises a lot of eyebrows in the HIIT community. I learned from a guy who worked with Arthur Jones. He was one of, I think he even self-described himself as one of Arthur's guinea pigs, from back in the day. And so this is coming from my mentor in HIIT was one guy away from Arthur Jones. I'm not going to put somebody on that. If they're coming to me for work,
Okay.
I'm not doing that to somebody. It's just that over the year, I've been doing this for 20 some, over the years, I've
You're a
just adapted
masochist.
to
I
it.
understand. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror. It looked like I was suddenly 20 pounds heavier. That's the kind of pump I got. I can't get that pump by myself. And what I'm trying to do is the high volume makes up a little bit for the fact that I don't have those extra sets,
It makes up for the intensity.
the
Yeah.
exercises. It
Yeah.
makes up for the fact that I can't train as hard as I
Yeah.
could. I
Yeah.
could
You're
with
so
as if I
right.
had somebody pushing me.
Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to High Intensity Business, your one-stop shop for growing your strength training business and fueling your passion for high-intensity strength training. My guest today is Matt Brzycki. Matt Brzycki is the Assistant Director of Campus Recreation at Princeton University with over 42 years of experience in collegiate strength, fitness, and wellness. A former US Marine and nationally recognized educator, he's authored or co-authored 15 books and more than 500 articles on strength training and fitness. Matt is also known for introducing the widely cited Brzycki formula for predicting 1 rep max strength, making him one of the most influential voices in evidence-based training. Matt, it is great to be with you. Was that accurate, that bio?
Yeah, that was good. Thank you.
Perfect.
And
Okay.
thanks for inviting me to be on your podcast. I mean, you do a really it's an honor because you do a really great service for a lot of people.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to hear that from you. And it's a funny story, isn't it? Because I reached out to you many years ago. And you very, very politely declined my invitation. So it was extremely pleasant for me to receive your email to want to join me on the show, which I really
Yeah, that
appreciate.
was that was when your business was the corporate warrior. I guess
Right.
what year would have been?
Oh man.
Just to
I
put it in
don't even know.
perspective.
20, I don't know, somewhere around 2012 to 2015,
Okay.
somewhere probably closer to 2012. Yeah, something
Okay.
like that. Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
so, so yeah, really excited to obviously have you on the show and just talk training with you. Yeah, just really thrilled to have you. So, one of the things I've been thinking a lot about recently is training frequency and recovery, right? That the ongoing debate that goes on in strength training and certainly in high intensity training as well. And I'm just curious to hear how you think about this, right? In terms of programming a workout for someone so that they are increasing strength, increasing muscle mass over time. How do you think about that? I suppose if we try and be more specific with the example, like if you take a trained person, right? And they are, I don't know, my age, let's say. So I'm 38. And as you can see, I'm sort of selfish for knowing this for myself. How might you sort of program a workout over the long term to kind of produce the best outcomes if we're talking about strength and muscle mass? And obviously there's many other benefits, but if we start there.
Well, I think of it someone like yourself who's you're obviously not a beginner, you're somewhat experienced. So I'm gonna dabble more in I think I could vary your workouts more than somebody else who's just starting. Uh, but what I would do typically is I would prescribe a total body workout, training your muscles from largest to smallest, classic hit type programming. Training your muscles from largest to smallest, starting with the legs, going through the upper upper body, going the major muscles there, then the smaller muscle of the upper body, and finishing with the so-called core, the midsection. If you're in a sport or activity that requires that has a high potential for neck injury, you want to include some neck exercises there. And we want to do that 2 to 3 times a week, and I think that would be dictated by. I mean, everybody's got different levels of recovery. Some people recover faster from workouts than others. So what we could do is initially experimenting in terms of how many workouts you're able to get in a given time period and still make progress. And that's the key part too. Is if somebody asks me, well, how do I know if what I'm doing is enough? If I'm doing too much? It's like, well, if you're tracking your data, specifically the resistance that you use and repetitions that you do, if you're tracking that over time and you're able to make improvements, then nobody on the planet can say what you're doing is wrong. I mean, obviously it's work because you're making progress. If on the other hand, you hit some plateaus, or worse than that, you start to regress, you're using less weight than in the past and or the same weight for less repetitions, then it probably you're not getting enough recovery. So then we got to work on, okay, we got to tinker with the volume of your training somehow. So maybe it's too many workouts. Maybe it's too many sets within those workouts. Maybe it's just some muscle groups that are getting overtrained and others aren't. So we tinker with that a little bit. And just as a quick side note too, this is actually a somewhat relevant question, because me personally, um, the workouts the hit workouts that I grew up on, so to speak, were high volume hit. I mean, by many people's standards, and by high volume hit, I mean our workouts when this was introduced to me, and maybe we could go into that too, is like how I came across this, how I got into the high intensity training tribe, so to speak. But when this was introduced to me back in 1980, at a facility in 44th, Pennsylvania, uh, we did. I think the workout was somewhere around 18 exercises. And that raises a lot of eyebrows in the hit community, because some are like 10 to 12, or, even the ones that aren't really, you got the one extreme, the Mike Menser extreme in terms of volume, like the really, really super low volume. And I think I was at the other extreme, and that was the way I learned from a guy who worked with Arthur Jones. He was one of, I think he even self-described himself as one of Arthur's guinea pigs, from back in the day. And so this is coming from my mentor in HIT, was one guy away from Arthur Jones. And this guy in the facility that we had, I mean, it's something like 18 exercises. I'd have to go back and count. But that's many in the HIT community will look at it as like, that's kind of high volume. And that was back in 1980. And it's the workouts that I do now, what is that, 45 years later, and I'm coming up on 7 years old really quick. That's really bears a strong resemblance to the workouts that I do right now.
Can you elaborate on that? I'd love to hear what you do right now.
Um, I basically have a Monday, Friday templates and a Wednesday template. And let me just talk about Mondays and Fridays first, because Wednesdays are somewhat different. But Mondays and Fridays, I do the classic 1 set to fatigue, and sometimes a breakdown set, depending upon the exercise. And I'll try to target, and Mondays and Fridays are kind of the same workout, but they're different. I do different exercise. I do different things just to break up the monotony. So I'm not doing this. It feels like I'm doing the same workout like twice in the same week. So just to give some variety. So I'll start with the hip exercises. I'll go to legs, and I typically for legs, I really only go after hamstring. I think that my cardio gets a lot of quad work already, so I'm just doing hamstrings at that point. And then I'll go upper body. I'll do right now I'm doing like 3 chest exercises, 3 upper back exercises, 3 shoulder exercises, and most of those are 1 set to fatigue, and then a quick breakdown set. and I'll do one exercise for the biceps, one for the triceps. I'll do some type of form work, and typically at that point, I do my cardio, the classic
Well, and like, is that on a
LSD
Wednesday,
run
sorry,
for.
or after the
That's on a
session?
Mondays and
You do
Fridays.
your cardio after your strength workout.
I do the strength training. I do a total body strength workout.
Yeah.
Then I do cardio,
No break
and I
between,
try to
straight
do.
into it.
I mean, as long as it takes me to write, because I'm writing stuff down like on a workout
Uh-huh.
card.
Yeah. You're a
But as
monster.
long as, so once I do that, I go right to the cardio equipment and get going on that. And the way it's been like right now, subject to change, but because I'll change stuff from time to time. But I try to do either uh the uh the Sunday, Monday, I should say, not necessarily Monday, but Sunday, Monday, depending upon what, one of those 2 days I'll work. That's my a workout day, either Sunday or Monday, and the other one's a Friday. But the Sunday, Monday workout would be for cardio. I'll do a rower, and I got up to, usually I would just do 2,000 meters, like the classic 2,000 meters on an erg.
Well, like
And what I,
a slower pace or like an easy pace or
well, I
whatever.
mean, I was getting like in the area of like somewhere around a 9 minute mark for 2,000 meters. But what I wanted to do over time, I wanted to build that up. And now I gradually got up to, I'm doing 20 minutes. And I'm doing something like 4,400 meters in 20 minutes, something like that. No, not quite that. 42 something, 42 and change, I think it is,
Okay.
in 20 minutes.
I'm no
And then
rower,
I'll
so I don't even
finish.
know if that's good, but
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. Some of your audience might be, but at any
sure.
rate, uh, and then I'll do once I get done with that, I'll do a few minutes on a third climbing machine. On Fridays, I'll do some type of uh, the cardio there, just like a rower involves upper. It's like a pretty much a total body cardio. I'll try to do a total body cardio on Friday as well, but that's either like an arc trainer or an elliptical. And sometimes I bounce back and forth. I'll do an arc trainer one Friday, next Friday do an elliptical.
And you're
And then
doing
if
a
there's any
full body strength workout on the Friday as well before
before
the
that,
cardio,
yeah.
yeah? Yeah.
I think part of it is that, like, if somebody's relatively new to the game and they hear that, like what I just described, they're like, I'm not gonna do it. It's just too much volume. But I've been doing, like, all my life. This is what the volume that I've used. So
Uh-huh.
I don't
What
think
happens
if I
on
was,
sorry, what happens on Wednesdays?
well, let me just,
Sorry,
so
forgive me.
that's one, so that's Wednesday's a bit a different animal. So, and then like on Mondays and Fridays, I go after the cardio, then I'll do some type of, I'll do some ab work. So a torso flexion and some type of something for my obliques, either a side, it's in the lateral flexion or a rotation. Once a week I do low back. Once a week I do calves, and then and then I've neck extra. And I do on the days that I don't have access to a neck machine, I just do self-resistive neck exercise.
Yeah.
So that's it. I'm pretty exhausted. It's as exhaustive as it is to do it as it is to just describe what I what I do.
So sorry,
Because there's a
I'm
lot
not
going
clear
on.
on Wednesday. Wednesday sounds like
So
spine
here's
and
the
trunk.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Here's the Wednesday.
Oh,
So on
sorry.
Wednesdays I
Well, we haven't
do
even talked about Wednesday
so
yet.
that's Mondays and Wednesdays are kind of the same template,
Oh,
but
well,
just using just moving different exercises. Sometimes
got
it's
it.
I might do a couple of machine exercises for chest on a Monday, and on a Friday, it's a couple free weight exercises for chest. But it's still the same general template. So here's Wednesday. I start off with a classic, or I won't say classic, uh, 3x3.
Okay.
And I think some of your listeners, your audience may be familiar with that, but basically 3x3
Yeah.
it's a series of 3 exercises done 3 times. So, and the 3 exercises are, it's a multi-joint hip, a multi-joint chest, and a multi-joint back, repeated 3 times. And the idea is you want to take I mean, this is even more like when I do the Monday and Friday workouts too, so after I get done with the exercise, whether I did it just one set of fatigue or I also add a breakdown set on certain exercises, then I'm recording that on a workout card. Then I go set up for the next exercise and go to it. Like I'm moving. Like the only time I'm standing still really, if I'm either doing the exercise or I'm recording data, and then I go set up. So I'm moving pretty quickly.
When
With
you
the
when you
three
do
by
your three
three,
by three, is it a failure each time?
it's it's approaching. Let's say it's approaching.
Like two reps or 1 rep in
It's a,
reserve, that type of thing.
well, that's actually, and the reps in reserve thing is something maybe we'll bring
Well,
that
how
up
bad we are
a little
predicting it
bit
is that,
later. We'll
yeah,
talk.
really
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Well, it
how do
trains
you
people
know?
a bit better though, right? A little bit better. Would you,
How do you know? You have two
okay?
reps in reserve or 1 rep in reserve. How do
All
you know
right.
that? But at any rate, because maybe that'll work. Maybe like if you have 1 rep in reserve or 2 reps in reserve, maybe you could get stronger that way. That's
Uh-huh.
great, but how do you know
How do you know,
that
right?
you have
That's why we go to
2 reps in
failure,
reserve,
right? Just to make
right?
sure, right? Well, one of the reasons.
So here's how I set up for the 3x3, and this is something that's evolved over the years. And I often get credit as the 3x3 guy, and ultimately that evolved into like I'm the one who came up with it, and that's not. I want to be clear, that's not the case. The tracking this down. I got it from John Thomas or JT when he was a strength coach at Penn State, who got it from a guy named Bob Brzycki at West Point when JT was an assistant and Bob was the head guy. He ended up. Bob went to the Arizona Cardinals actually from West Point. But at any rate, so the farthest back I could trace a 3x3 is, and this goes back. This would be like it had to be late 80s, early 90s. By my estimate, it's Bob Brzycki. So that's his baby. But I think where my name has been attached with the 3x3 is because I'm the guy who talks about it a lot. I write about it. I do
You
it.
wrote about it.
I do it. Yeah. So like my for like a couple of decades, I'd have to go back and look, but I'm doing a 3x3 on Wednesday. That's my Wednesday workout for like 20 years or so.
Just
So
why
anyway,
I show the books very quickly for you, Matt. So anyone who hasn't read these, you got to get yourself a copy. Maximize your training and a practical approach to strength training. These books are amazing, and I have learned so much from these. And yeah, so I was literally reading about metabolic conditioning from you today, and here mentioning the 3x3. Yeah, so that's kind of
now,
funny.
just to be clear too, that maximize your training, I edited that book. I didn't write that one. So there's
I
about
appreciate you
30
saying that.
some authors
Yeah,
in there.
you have a lot of humility, Matt.
But so here's how I'm at the point now. Here's how I do my 3x3 is that and most recently, it depends on where I'm at in time and what equipment I have access to. But right now, my hip exercise is a hammer strength belt squat. Then I do a incline press with a barbell, and then do body weight chins, and I repeat that 3 times. And over the year, if you go, and I have OCD, so I have records dating back to like the mid 80s, like tracking my information for when I first started doing high intensity training. Uh, but on a regular basis, when I first started doing it on a regular basis. But so I'm really into tracking stuff, but with the 3x3, it'll be right now. It's a belt squat, the incline press barbell. It's a body weight chins, and I repeat that 3 times. Here, the other thing is I use a metronome, and what I do is on my belt squat or my hip, whatever hip exercise I do. Sometimes I have access to a hammer strength hack squat. Over the years, I've done a hammer strength leg press. It just depends on what I have access to. But and now it's a hammer strength. We just got one, and I'm really anxious to pull into my program. But I have a metronome. My hip exercise for years and years and years, I do 8 seconds up and 8 seconds down. So it's a 16-second rep. And I try, and then the upper body stuff, it's a 4-4. And I got the metronome going, so I know it's exactly dead on. It's 8 seconds up, 8 seconds down. Upper body is 4 seconds up, 4 seconds down.
So when you do your Monday, Friday,
so let me just, Lawrence,
let
me just add. So, and what I'll do is that, and it depends upon the layout of the facility on how close those. My recovery time, I'm moving, like I'm not tracking stuff until I'm done. because all I have to do is remember what I did on 9 exercises, right? So what I do is I barrel through that. And when I say barrel, I'm like almost jogging between what did I get with the belt squat? It's the incline press is directly, it was near that. It's near it. So I take a few steps, plop on the incline press, bang that out. I jog over to the chin up to a power rack and do chins there, bodyweight chins, and then I jog back to the belt squat and I repeat it. And just to give you an idea too, to put that in perspective, is that like the time that this takes is because I know, because when I go with a stopwatch and I got the metronome going, so I know exactly how long my workout took to the second. And I also can figure out, if I know how long my reps were and how many reps I did, I know how much my recovery was for the whole workout. And I'm taking on average like 11 seconds between each exercise.
Oh, wow.
On average. So I'm moving pretty good. My heart rate, it's somewhere like 128, 132. Again, I'm almost 7 years old. When I'm done, and lifting, that's fairly high for lifting. So that's my workout on Wednesday.
So
And then
how many exercises are you doing on Monday and Friday? Like roughly, just approximately, like 10 to 15 or something like that?
Ballpark. I have this written down, but off the top of my head, it's going to be with neck. It's got to be in the low 20s.
This is so interesting. Sorry, I got so many questions about this, but is there anything else you want to share on that?
Well, going back, so my Wednesday workout, that's the 3x3. And the 3x3, that whole workout's taking me like 9 minutes and 30 some seconds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I got about 11 seconds of recovery between, because technically there's like 11, if I'm doing 9 exercises, there's 8 recovery intervals in there.
Yeah.
And in those 8 recovery intervals, it's taking me like 11 seconds or so on average. There's been times in the past where I've been able to, with the equipment layout, I could get it closer together. And my recovery between exercises is literally like 8 seconds now, because I'm almost like falling off of one into the other. That's how close this stuff.
So you've got a huge advantage being in an amazing facility in Princeton University, right?
And then so my cardio on those days is an interval workout, and I've been doing that forever. So again, you think about my Monday and Wednesday, that's more like my high volume hit days. On Wednesdays, that's my low volume, so 9 exercise for strength. And then my cardio is I'm doing an interval workout. And right now, that's taken on different versions over the years or iterations. But right now, I'm alternating between. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the vertical climber.
Yeah.
So I alternate between a vertical climber, and I just started incorporating, and I thought the vertical climber was like the most horrible thing you could do to your body from a cardio standpoint. I thought that for years until I started doing the air assault bike with the upper body and lower body component. Yeah, we're Schwinn, the classic Schwinn, but now some other manufacturers are doing those. But I'm using an HD air bike from Hammer Strength, and that's even worse. That's even more miserable than the vertical climber. But at any rate, what I'll do is, and for both instances, I'll do 90 seconds on, 90 seconds off. Repeat it 6 times. That's the workout.
Wow.
So 90 seconds on the vertical climber. That's my work interval. Is 90 seconds, and I get 90 seconds recovery. Back on for 90.
And this is after you've done 3x3.
That's after the 3x3.
Wow.
But again, I'm not going to put somebody on that if they're coming to me for work. I'm not doing that to somebody. It's just that over the year, I've been doing this for 20 some over the years.
You're a masochist. I understand. Yeah.
Yes.
So
it's
this is
kind
so
of
fascinating.
mentality.
Yeah, because there's this where do I start? So there's this obviously ongoing debate about volume, frequency, intensity, and it's this continuum. There's individuals like yourself on the high volume end, I would say, it within HIIT. I mean, obviously there's, if we're looking at the broader traditional exercise landscape, you got people doing what you're doing like 6 times a week, right? We're not really talking about that. We know that's probably too much. But it's just, obviously we know that there's a continuum for recovery and there is actually enormous individual variability in recovery ability, right? We know that. So always the answer is always, it depends with this stuff, whether someone's going to be able to tolerate it. You clearly, I mean, you strike me as someone who's got incredible ability to recover and adapt from workouts. Do you recognize that in yourself? Do you think?
Well,
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think here's what I have to add too is that, because one of the things that we ought to talk about, and we talked about it earlier in the podcast, but we ought to bring it back into play now, is the idea of progress. So the question, well, how much progress are you making on that? Well, that's a tricky one because I'm able to, despite that volume, I'm able to maintain the resistance and repetitions that I can do over time.
So you're not looking, you're not necessarily seeing increase in strength, but you're maintaining.
But here's the other variable, Lawrence, too. That comes into play is my age.
Well, of course. Yeah,
like
I didn't want to say that because I sound rude, but you said it. So
I've said I've approached I'm coming up. The next marker, the next milestone, I guess, would be 68 and a half.
Okay. Well, you look great.
So as you get older, you're not going to be able to make the gains so in my mind, if I could maintain my performance in resistance and repetitions, that's progress.
But no, it's amazing.
Can maintain.
But you know what's so fascinating is you hear so many people in the kind of the HIIT space say, "Oh, as you get older, you do less." Like, I think a lot of people listening to this who are kind of like maybe approaching your age or older would be like, "Man, he's overtraining," or "How does he do that volume?" Yeah.
Let me add this too, Lawrence, because this just popped into my head, and every now and then it pops in my head. And if you were at, before we came on, we talked. Luke Carlson's name came up, and you mentioned the last time he had it in Minnesota. I met you.
That was the resistance exercise
on your way
conference.
out. Yeah. If you remember, part of that conference was there was a company, and I think is it Image.
Imagine
Strength.
Imagine Strength.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we had the lines and machines doing the workouts,
and they had the lines and machines, and we had appointment times. And you would go to each station, and you would have a trainer at the station. What do we do? Like 11, 12 exercises, maybe, or something like that.
Something like that.
And so here's the thing, and I did that. I ran through it. Super low volume, especially relative to what I've been doing.
To me, it's like high volume.
I tell you what, I had a really good workout, but here's the thing. So here's what we're comparing is that workout there, I had a trainer for every single station, which pushed me to fatigue beyond what my head is saying. My head's like, maybe it's time to bail out on this, and the trainer's going, no. And then in some cases, they're doing some type of overload reps, like immediately. That's a totally different animal from the workout. I don't have a training partner. So when I go to fatigue, am I going to fatigue on some things? I think so, yeah. Do I have a little bit left in the tank? Maybe, but I got to be like an incline press with a barbell. I'm not going to complete it because I'm by myself.
Interesting.
I'm training as hard as I can at this age by myself. What I'm doing is I'm making up for the lack of a training partner who could push me, and where we're taking and they're not recording data either. Like, where you're going from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And by the way, too, is here's what pops in my head right now. When I got done, I was and some of your audience is gonna think this is like a weird statement coming from me, but I was so pumped, and I don't mean mentally, but physically my muscle was. I hadn't had a pump like that in years.
I think you stripped your shirt off and we're doing like a double bicep.
That was me.
Is that you? Was it?
I was the guy. Nobody applauded, by the way. So, uh, but I got just an incredible pump in a short amount of time. But again, I had the train every station. I had the training partner, right? So it just ended up like blew me up, like physically. It was a great workout. I mean, if it look, and I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror. It looked like I was suddenly 20 pounds heavier. That's the kind of pump I got. I can't get that pump by myself. And what I'm trying to do is the high volume makes up a little bit for the fact that I don't have those extra sets, the
It makes up for
extra
the intensity.
the
Yeah.
exercises. It
Yeah.
makes up for the fact that I can't train as hard as I
Yeah.
could. I
Yeah,
could
you're
with
so
as if I
right.
had somebody pushing me.
The resistance exercise conference, or now the strength forum, we should probably talk about that briefly now. The pump you get from that is legendary, right? Even for myself, like it's really hard to produce that pump again. Although obviously supervised training will do that, right? But yeah, it's something
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the pump we get at those
So,
events.
so I think it's important to add that aspect is the fact, again, when somebody goes, Brzycki's doing like a ton of volume, not making progress. Yeah, well, I'm almost 70, and so on. And I'm training by myself, and to compensate for the fact that if I had a trainer, I couldn't do that much volume. There's no way I wouldn't last.
Yeah. Do you
If somebody's leaning,
like recovered and good? Do you feel, because like this is the other thing, right? Other variables of not being fully recovered, like low mood and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming you
I
don't
mean,
have those symptoms. Go ahead.
I'm recovered enough to again be able to, in subsequent workouts to be able to do the
Be
same.
motivated to.
And little by little, I'm inching up in weights here and there, and hopefully my form is still pretty solid. That I'm not, I'm still full range of motion. I'm not losing range of motion, stuff like that. But like I'm inching up in things here and there, and maybe sometimes when I inch up, I lose a rep, and and if I get to the point where that's just too many, the reps are like too low on this, I'll just back off. I'll cut the weight back. So I did this on a seated row recently. I felt my reps were, I kind of plateaued, like I clearly plateaued here. And, this is an exercise like a seated row on a machine. I could take that to fatigue because I'm not going to it's not like I'm going to get stuck, right? So I got to the point where I could not get another repetition. And I felt that if I moved up any more weight, that my reps would drop down or I'd lose range of motion, like I sacrifice range of motion. So what I did is I cut the weight back. So same exercise, but I just cut the weight back. And now I went from and I'm counting I'm not doing like the Monday, Friday workouts with metronome. I'm counting in my head. And I'm trying to raise the weight in about 2 seconds. I'm trying to lower in 4. Ultimately, it's probably like a 1.5, 3. Because your mind tends to count faster, even though you're trying to go. You're kind of like as if it was a second. Your mind's counting faster, probably like a little bit of a survival mechanism. But what I did instead of doing a classic, your traditional 2-4 or thereabouts 1-5-3, I went to a 4-4 with a lot less weight, and now little by little I'm starting to inch up in weight again. On that exercise.
Interesting.
So tinkering with speeds of movement and things along those lines, or like what I could do if I had access to different equipment. Instead of the seated row, I'd try like a low row, or I'm already doing a lat pull down before that. But I might do a low row or something. I might switch it, or I might do a dumbbell row instead of a seated row on a machine, just to get away from that and do something else.
Yeah. Now my next question, without sounding rude, and I don't know you well enough, and you seem like a very calm, stoic individual for the most part, but do you ever, what's he going to ask me now? Do you consider yourself like a neurotic person? Like, are you like neurotic in terms of like, do you crave the workouts? Do you think there's an element of, I just don't feel myself or feel good unless I work out? Because that's a big thing, right, for people, is the angst they get from not training. And I wonder if that feeds into your frequency. Because you could, go ahead.
You're onto something there. And I will go back to what I mentioned before. I've got OCD. I've got it for the most part, I think I've got it under control. It used to be worse
Okay.
when I was younger, where that ink pen had to be like right there. It couldn't be like 1 inch to the right, or it had to be like right there. Or even like in my car, the radio station, when I got out of my car, it had to be on like if I had different, like a favorites list, it had to be on the lowest frequency station right
Okay.
before I left my car. And after a while, I said to myself, why? What's going to happen? So now it's okay if that ink pen is like 1 inch to the left. And it's okay if I just, whatever station is on my car. But that's how bad it was at one. I mean, I was really close. Like I could have had my own reality show. I mean, with the OCD, it was like, it was, but now and again, you're raising a good point. I think that's definitely coming into play in terms of the volume stuff, especially considering, so where if I miss a workout, I start to like almost literally scratch. Like I'm like
It's
chomping at
just
the
very
bit. I
common.
got to get a workout in,
Yeah.
right?
I'm the
And
same.
the thing is, the last time I've had COVID, I got COVID twice. I'm actually surprised I didn't get it more considering like the environment I work in, like a college campus. But I had it twice. I got it twice, and wiped me out pretty good. Uh, it took my strength came back pretty quickly. My cardio was struggling with cardio building back up. So I thought that was interesting. But I got more winded, after coming back. But where I was going with this is when I had COVID, I missed a workout or two here and there.
Right. Yeah.
When I got back, it was a gradual, get back into it gradually. And I noticed that
Sure.
much more my cardio then was affected than strength. And just one other
Yeah.
thing, like, while we're on the topic, because is that I think some of this too relates to, um, if you go like my backstory, if you go way, way back, where like ninth grade, kind of still like way, way back, is that, and this is during so when I was in ninth grade, you're talking like the early 70s. And at that point in this country, and if anybody in your audience is roughly my age, give or take, they remember in gym class having to do a fitness test,
Mm.
right? And the fitness test that we were using at the time, like my school, it was called the YPF, the Youth Physical Fitness Test, and it was sponsored by the Marine Corps. Side note, but at any rate, it consisted of it was 2 minutes of sit-ups, it was max push-ups, it was pull-ups, a standing broad jump, and I think it was this order too. Although the broad jump might have come before the pull-ups, and then the last thing it finished with a 300-yard shuttle run. So I'm in ninth grade. I'm like 5'9", and I didn't grow much beyond that. But I'm like 5'9", and I'm weighing like 99 pounds, like at ninth grade. I was like almost the classic 98-pound weakling. Uh, so I'm doing stuff like I didn't do any pull-ups. I think I got like 7 push-ups, and I think
Not
I got
bad.
like 16 sit-ups. Right? I don't remember the broad jump. Broad jump was a little more harder to remember because it's got like orders of inches and stuff, and the show runs like in seconds. I don't remember that, but I remember those. And at that point, it's like, um, so I like failed the miserably. I mean, like for sit-ups, for example, like 100 sit-ups was you got a perfect score. I did like 16. Push-ups was like
Wow.
60. I did like 7 or something like that. Pull-ups was 30. I did like 0. I just hung there. I couldn't even put my arms. So the way I like to package that too is when I tell that story is that, yeah, life is going to smack you in the face, from time to time. And it's a matter of how do you react to that? How do you respond? So in this case, I got smacked in the face, by the embarrassment, humiliation of flunking this test. And you doing it, and this is back in the day, you're doing it in front of everybody. Like everybody in your class was watching everybody else,
Right.
right? Yeah, there's only one pull-up bar, for example. So everybody's watching you pull. So
Oh
everybody's
man.
watching me just hang there, kind of thing.
Yeah. Start
So
escalating when you're that age.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in that instance, like, what do you do? How do you respond? And the two kind of responses are, do you get up or give up when you get knocked down? And for whatever reason, I don't know why, but I decided to get up, and I made it. it became a passion of mine to work out. And I think that's something, fast forward 50 plus years, that's still in the back of my mind. Because I remember where I was and I didn't
Wow.
like where I was and I don't want to go back there kind of thing. So I think that's, so if you're bringing up the mental aspect of this whole thing, like besides,
Sure.
feeling neurotic about it or mention the OCD, I think that's a factor too that's got to be mentioned. Like my backstory, I guess, and I
Yeah,
think that's
thank
true.
you for sharing
I
that.
think there's going to be some people in your audience that have a similar story, maybe
Oh
not.
yeah. Oh, 100%. Like so many of
You
us in
know,
here get into here because we don't respond to other training and we've got a chip on our shoulder and we were insecure when we were younger and all of that stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
huge
remind me
childhood trauma.
exactly. You remind
You know,
me the Navy SEAL Jocko Willink is quite popular these
yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
He wrote a series of kids books called The Warrior Kid, and I bought them for. Do you know, it's actually another
That's
Navy
like really
SEAL, a Navy
knowing. I
SEAL.
don't know him personally, but I know of him, and that's like bizarre that he would write a kid's book. But
I know, right? Quite can. Yeah, you don't expect that. But it's actually another Navy SEAL I spoke to who wasn't actually a big fan of his, but still loved his book. So it was like the ultimate recommendation. So I bought them for my son, and he's only just about to turn 6, but he loves them, and I read it to him at bedtime. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's the same fitness test in that book. He can't do one chin up at the start of the one of the books. So it's the first book. And then the whole story is about how his Navy SEAL uncle comes to stay with him in the summer and toughens him up, right? So he gets him up early at like 4 in the
that's
morning for a
funny.
work, zero
Yeah,
dark
yeah, yeah, yeah,
30
yeah.
for a workout in the basement doing chin ups.
Right.
And it's really cool because he teaches him discipline, hard
Yeah,
work,
yeah, yeah,
and in lots of different domains. So, right, not just
yeah,
fitness, but also his studying. And he
yeah,
just
yeah.
becomes a better, happier kid. And it's so, I mean, I'm inspired reading it as I'm reading it, and,
Yeah.
and my son loves it. So
So now
it's,
I see with the Jocko tie into that. I see that
yeah,
now.
yes, right,
Got
exactly.
it.
Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
connecting the dots.
Yep. Yep.
So just while we're on the topic of obviously the Strength Forum, I wanna make sure to say a little bit more about it and explain to people how to attend. So it's an event in Orlando. Orlando, Florida, November 21st, I think. And basically, it's where lots of wonderful strength training professionals, high intensity training trainers, experts, business owners all get together and socialize. There's a lot of socializing, connecting, networking, telling trading stories. And then there's lots of learning around, exercise science, the business of strength training, and all the rest of it. And it's a wonderful thing. It's kind of like there used to be an event called REC, which is Resistance Exercise Conference, which and this has basically become like a more intimate version of that. But it's very popular, and I know lots of people have already subscribed. So if you're interested in going, I would do one of two things. I would either email Luke Carlson, who's the CEO of Discover Strength. Now, he's a very busy man, and so I don't know if that's the best way, but that's luke@discoverstrength.com. Or you can join my free community on School, which is School spelled with a K, school.com/HIB-free. We'll put a link below this, at least on YouTube. And when you access the group, you'll get all the details. It's free to join the group. You also get courses, access to a hit business community, get loads of resources, but you also get details there on how to find out more about Strength Forum and buy a ticket. And it's very, very affordable. So there you go. And obviously the most important thing to mention is that Matt will be there speaking, right? So I forgot to mention that important point.
I've got I have quite a bit of a history with this particular conference and its evolution over the years. And actually, we mentioned Luke Carlson a couple of times here, but um, if I could just add some
Please do.
little bit of storytelling here, but I Luke contacted me. Luke, I believe at the time was a grad student at the University of Minnesota. And I remember us talking on the phone. I'd have to figure out what year. I'd have to look at my notes and figure out what year it was, but it was like quite a ways away at this point, like early 2000s, I think. But at any rate, we talked a lot about high intensity training, Arthur Jones, Dan Riley, a lot of names came up. And one of the things is that Luke shared his plan to host conferences bringing together some pretty high-powered speakers, and for example, I mean the names are in the earlier. So this predates. Let me back up. So you have the Strength Forum now.
Mhm.
The predecessor of the Strength Forum, which is what you mentioned, the Rec Conference. The predecessor of that was the HIT Resurgence Conference, and I think that started in, oh geez, I want to say like 2010, maybe his first one,
Old to be a fly on the wall, one of those.
2011. But Luke was actually doing conferences before that. Like he did a few of them before that, and he's talking about speakers like Wayne Westcott, Jim Peterson, John Thomas. I mean, these are high powered people, and again, he's a grad student at the time, and so was his. I don't know if his colleague was Scott Savor, and they partnered up on those early conferences, but um, you know, damned if he didn't pull it off. So
Yeah.
he's bringing in the assistant strength coach at Michigan State, who at the time was Tim Wakeham. He's bringing in Ted Lambrinides. He's bringing in like all these high-powered people. And the funny thing was that one of these, I thought it was funny. One of these conferences is that he and Scott were doing, and Luke does everything first class. Like even like to this day, and even back then, he did his first class as much as he could, to the point where I mean, I'm laughing about it now. I'm sure it wasn't funny back then. He and Scott, his business partner at the time for those conferences, you know, they were like pulling out their wallets, shaking them out to see how many coins would drop out to pay these bills. Because he buys the conference, he's taking the speakers out to dinner, he's doing this, he's doing that. Like that's the way he is. But
he's not changed.
Yeah, right. But what's changed is he's now become a highly successful businessman.
Very much so.
Back then in started like again, everything first class, but Luke can correct me if I'm wrong, but those guys really struggled to pay bills back then. I mean, they paid the bills, but
of course, yeah, humble beginnings. It's funny you remind me, like Luke he can be an incredibly funny guy, I think, and he was, when he was explaining the sort of logistics and the setup for the dinner at the Christmas Steakhouse, which I think is the plan this year as well. It's unbelievable food. Oh my God. Amazing. And he was really, really strict with everyone. He was like, I'm not letting you in the restaurant until you pay. Like, and it's just, we were all just rolling around laughing. It was very funny. But no, I do love that about Luke. And talking about,
and it's been one of the things Lawrence too is the conferences. When he started, they became, and I hate to say more formal because that suggests that the other ones weren't formal. But when he came up with I was at the first one, the HIT Resurgence Conference. He had like Dan Riley, I think Jim Flanagan, spoke at that one. Dan was there, and so on. But he always has these high-powered speakers. And Luke, in the first night, in fact, it might have been. I can remember back in the day if it was 2 or 1, but at any rate, Luke gets up in front of the audience and he makes at the time, it was a very bold statement. His vision was to do these conferences for the next 10 years. I'm thinking, wow, it'd be tough.
He did it.
Because again, you're going after a very small, the HIT community, basically, right? Where you're turning off a lot of other people. They just don't want any part of it. Which is why it got rebranded over the years, by the way,
right,
to be more open. But that was a really bold statement. I'll tell you what, damned if he didn't pull it off. We had those conferences, and he revived from high intensity training, which kind of limited the pool of people that would go. Because as soon as they saw a HIT, I'm not going to that, right? Or some people would say that. A lot of people would say that. And then it became the Rec Conference. So now because it was a little bit more open, where you get different schools of thought there. And what that evolved to is the current iteration of the Strength Forum, which is, and he's moved it, thankfully, from Minnesota. I love Minnesota, but not in like January.
Yeah.
But he's moved it to Orlando or outside of Orlando. But it's become now the Strength Forum. It's a bit of and I've never been to one yet. This would be my first one. but I've talked to people who've been there, a number of people actually who've been there,
Oh, that's
and
great.
in reading how the layout, it's a bit of a reunion of sorts
That's
because a lot
exactly
of
what
these
it
people,
is. Yeah.
a lot of the high intensity people getting, it's like that community.
Yeah,
A
but
lot of the,
I do just want to say, like, yes, it's a reunion, but I certainly want more that to put people off. I'm thinking of new people who might be listening to this who are kind of interested. Like, it's a way to stay abreast of like what is the latest evidence around, how should we be exercising or teaching exercise, and what does the evidence kind of support there? And you're just surrounded people with so much wisdom and knowledge, and people to support you in
yeah,
your own pursuit of learning about of strength training, or the pursuit of in your business. So yeah, I just wanted to make, because I don't
no,
want people
that's a
feeling like
good
this is
point.
just a
No, you're
reunion
right.
of the old guard. Before we go any further, I just want to quickly thank our sponsor, Barvik GmbH. Building a successful strength training business requires top quality exercise machines and a reliable source of spare parts. Sourcing Medix machines, known for their exceptional design and performance, can be challenging, often leaving you dependent on the secondary market. Barvik GmbH, based in Hamburg, Germany, offers a solution. Led by Egger Barvik, who spent over 40 years working with and learning about Nautilus and Medix machines, and also completed a 3.5-year apprenticeship at Mercedes, mastering quality engineering, Barvik produces German-engineered Medix machines in India with thoughtful enhancements over their US counterparts. Barvik machines are trusted by happy customers all over the world, including members of the high-intensity business community. They're even being supplied in large volumes to major fitness brands like Keiser Training. For example, my former business partner and current HIB member Sean purchased Medix equipment from Barvik for his studio here in Galway, Ireland, and both he and his clients couldn't be happier. From popular pieces like the leg press, pullover, and bicep curl to rarer gems like the super forearm and tibialis, Barvik offers a wide selection of 35 Medix models built higher for easy movement with a pallet jack, zinc-plated weight plates, flat steel core belts instead of carbon fiber, and adjustable 90mm rubber feet. And right now, you can get 5% off a minimum order of 6 machines, but only for the next 3 months. This offer expires October 31st, so don't wait. Visit medx.eu, tell the team what you need, and choose the machines to grow your business. That's medx.eu, medx.eu. And now, back to the episode.
Right.
Yeah.
And something that you just triggered it again. You triggered something earlier on, and now you kind of brought it back. And it's the idea of evidence-based training. So, and I think it's worth spending a couple minutes talking about that in a couple different ways. One is that, Luke, I don't know if he was the first one to use that term, evidence-based training, but he was certainly one of the first. I remember Mark Asanovich, who spent like 14 years in the NFL as a training coach, a Minnesota guy. But I know he used the term early on too. And when I say early on, like way before it became popular. Well, those guys were using that term. One of the things that's going on right now, and I don't know if you're in on this, but for the last year or so, there's been a really big push against evidence-based training.
Okay, interesting. How
And I
so?
think it's sort of, and you won't, being in Ireland, no, so that's on the internet that's floating around. And you may not be up on this because you're living in Ireland, but here in the States, there's been, and I don't want to get into politics, but there's
No, it's
been
fine.
a movement, there's been an anti-academic, anti-science movement,
Oh, I
here,
see. Yes, I understand that. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where anti-educate, this and that. And I think this anti-evidence-based training is kind of following a similar pattern as what's going on across the United States in terms
Okay.
of anti-science and, but this is taking a training, a weight training twist on it, right?
Interesting.
And where that's some of the roots of that, it's actually is interesting. And some of the roots in that is, or are, where you get these guys who they claim to be science-based or not, so that's out there. Or one of the criticisms is that, the science-based guys or that community, they're ignoring people that just go and work out, like the anecdotal part of it. They're ignoring that part. And there's something to be
Okay.
said about the
They're just talking
anecdotal
about
evidence.
the tiny samples of, trained young men
But you
in
can't ignore
studies.
the fact
Yeah.
though that they're making improvements. Is it scientific evidence? No, but it's evidence. So you can't. But there's a
Indeed.
group of people, science-based people, they ignore it. That doesn't count.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
don't think you could do
Right.
that. I think you still have to. It should be science-based, but I don't think you can ignore that. So that's been another criticism. And most recently, and I'm kind of itching to, to put this out there too, is that, and I won't mention names, but there's one guy has a PhD, and he markets that's one of his shticks is the fact that he's got a PhD, so he's evidence based, and I think he taught at a university, or a college. He refers to himself as Dr. Blank, right? So all that's good. Somebody dug up his thesis, and it was a dumpster fire. The
Okay.
thesis. Like, when I say dumpster, what does that mean? I mean, like, at least 200 typos.
Oh, well. Okay.
It had unrealistic data. Like, it had data for someone who was aged like minus 1.5 years old. Literally.
Right.
Like a year and a half before the data, that person was born. It had a ton of mistakes. The guy gets crushed, and a lot of it, and where
So we got exposed.
and it went. He got exposed,
All right.
which is another story. But it was part of that story. But it branched off in an unexpected way, because this came back to Mac evidence-based training in the face.
Okay. So it gave
unexpectedly,
evidence-based training that stigma
a
after that, right?
bad
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's like
It's become
and here's-
overused, which is strange.
plus also here's the thing, Lawrence, is in this case is that, okay, you got a guy over here, a science-based guy. Really? Because look at that thesis is a mess. He got his PhD. What kind of education did he get? So the anti-science-based people are looking at it and go, like, who else out there is
Who could you trust?
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you really trust this stuff? This is,
And then it comes probably back to the worst indicator of trust, which is, hey, look at my physique.
Oh
which
yeah.
is even worse, right? Difficult. It's difficult because then you really can't appeal to authority. You have to look at the research yourself, which, boy, it's tough because a lot of people will never do that. They're relying on
for whatever
people
reason.
to
Some people they're not comfortable doing that because they don't know enough,
or they don't have time.
Or they don't know how to read a research study, how to how to break it down. What's good about it, what's bad about it. They want information from other individuals, and then like, wait a minute, this guy's been telling us about this science-based, and he's that. Some people are afraid. They've called for the retraction of his PhD, which I think is extreme. But I mean, and then he also what came into question too was the university that issued that is being called into question too. Is like, how did this not only that, but the committee who reviewed the thesis, who signed off on it, that department, that school, they're all taking action because of that.
It's I was thinking, like, as you were saying, I was thinking, how do we remedy this? And actually, I think it might come down to just the stack of proof someone has. So, you look at yourself, you look at people like Dr. James Fisher, Dr. James Steele. These are scientists that I just really respect in our field. And obviously there are others too, but I guess we just have to look at like how much high quality research have they been involved in? Like, what's their background? And kind of use that as kind of probably a stronger indicator of reliable information, But you do again, this individual you mentioned probably has many citations and probably has a lot of kind of like phony proof, meaning like if they're like an influencer, if they're on social media, they probably have a lot of content, right? And a lot of content can build trust too, but it might not be.
Absolutely.
It might be a bit of a smoke screen, if that makes sense. So it is about, I think where I'm going with this is just having, okay, so we're not saying like you have to go and, does the average person have to go and read all the literature? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like, I think the average person maybe needs to be more skilled at discerning good information from bad and being judicious about their sources. And that's going to become even more important in an age of AI, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you make of that? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the other, like my take on this whole thing is that I think you got to look at, going back to what I mentioned before about the anecdotal evidence. It's anecdotal, but it's still evidence. Do you hold it to the same level as science-based evidence? For the most part, no, but let's look at the science-based evidence. I mean, if it was a study that involved 6 people, lasted for 4 weeks, can you take that and and say that the entire population should train that way now because of, a particular study? I think what you do, you take bits and whatever usable pieces of information, bites of information, chunks of information from research studies, and if it applies to you, try it, see how it goes. But you can't, so do it that way versus like try to say it's applicable to the entire population, which it's not. Again, some studies are done with very specific population groups. Say postmenopausal women. All right, so do we take that information and apply it to like college age male? No, right? But I also think, going back to the anecdotal stuff, I don't think you could dismiss that entirely as well, because I think there's something to be said about people. They're getting results. They're not part of a study. They're just doing different things and they're getting results. How could you say that it's not working? Going back to what we had talked about before. If they're getting results, whatever they're doing is working. But whatever they're doing may not work for you. And that's where, going back to the influencer stuff, a lot of the influencers, they have. And here's the other thing too with the influencers is that, and tying it back into the PhD guy that I talked about before, is that the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of fitness influencers, they have no formal education whatsoever in exercise science, like none. And I think that's where some of the pushback coming from is that population. They're pushing back against science guys because they don't have any science to back up. They're just going by their credentials. It's how they look in Speedos.
Yeah.
How they look in their underwear.
Yeah.
Right? So you get a guy like this now who's got a PhD and he says it's evidence-based stuff, right? And that kind of, they punch all kind of holes in that. But again, so they're just like, see, that's what, how much else is out there that's fake? That science is pushing, right? But the fitness influencers, it's going back to a point that you made earlier too, is their credentials are, that's why if you see their videos, almost none of them are wearing shirts if they're wearing shirts at all, it doesn't have sleeves on them, because they're covering up. If they do, they're covering up their credentials. That's their credentials.
That is their credentials. And this is the issue.
But just because they get improvement on a certain program, you got to remember when they tell this program to follow, that's what they're doing. That doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And of course, you never know what kind of performance enhancing drug or other,
or just extremely advanced, incredible genetics they have, right, as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this massive survivorship bias with influencers like that, or selection bias. It's just so well articulated, embodied by science. I think it's embodied by science. Doug McGuff explores this, and he talks about, we're always looking for the most efficient way to find truth, because we're like, we're trying to expend the least energy to get whatever we need, right, as human beings. And it's like, by looking at someone who's in great shape, it's like the fastest way, but it's not, it's obviously it's ineffective, right? But it plays tricks on our mind. And I guess it's up to us, right here on this podcast, to kind of say to people like, hey, you've got to understand that those individuals have completely different genetics. Like as Doug wrote in your book, you could throw tomatoes at them and they'd look like that. Um, and it's like not only that, but they're often using performance enhancing drugs. They're often using all this enhancement on the actual app itself to enhance the look of the photograph, right? Lighting, all these different. I mean, you can, as you know, with AI, you can create something completely novel, right? These days. And so it's just being really aware of that. And I think it just comes back to, I guess, what I was trying to say with trying to find credible individuals who may not look the part, but have the real credentials and are behind some of the most highest quality literature out there. Are you following along James Fisher and I don't know how involved Fisher is actually in the latest research with Discover Strength, but James Steele is doing work with he is heavily involved. So James Fisher, James Steele, and Discover Strength are doing a lot of research recently with massive sample sizes, which is fascinating. Have you been following this along?
I catch every now and then I stumble across. I don't look at the literature as much as I used to, because I looked at it way too much before, and I think I swung in the other direction. But I do stumble across studies where I see their names as author, including Luke's name, as authors on them, and I know they're using. The interesting thing about Luke and Discover Strength, I don't know how many facilities he's got at this point. I know it's like I think
over 30 at this stage.
I think if it's not 30, I think with the potential locations as they open, I think it's gonna be 30.
Oh yeah. With those
now,
probably closer to 40. Yeah, maybe
and those
more.
facilities have all these members, right? And the thing about Discover Strength, those franchises, they're very consistent from one facility to the other in terms of their approach.
Standardized training. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So now it's almost like doing if you look at a meta-analysis. What's a meta-analysis? Well, it's like a study of studies, kind of. So where they take these different smaller studies and they pull all the data together, assuming they're looking at the same thing, and then they have like a super study. So instead of 10 studies with 50 people, they have one study with 500. And it's kind of like, if you think about it, and I don't know how these studies are done, but the potential's there. Discover Strength has all these different locations with dozens and dozens of people. And if you do one study at one location and a couple dozen people, interesting, another study over here, same thing. But now you take all that data, and I don't know if they're doing this, but if they are, they pull all the data together. Now they get a really powerful study. Like a super study.
I never thought of that. Because obviously some of the problems, and this is I don't have a great understanding of this, but the way I understand it is some of the problems with some of the other meta-analyses that have been done in strength training is the quality of a lot of the studies in those meta-analyses are not great, and it's kind of like crap in, crap out, although that might be a bit of a, not the best way to put it. But the quality is sort of like, questionable. Whereas to your point, and they've done quite a lot of research now with Discover Strength, and obviously they're set to do more. It's like the quality of the meta-analysis you can do with all of that is probably so much better because of the standardization and consistency.
And if you look at it, it's like sort of like quality control is like really. But going back to what you had said about some of these meta-analyses too, it's like you could easily view the data there in terms of like cherry picking studies that you include,
which is what happens,
studies that you don't include. So if you include it, if a study says something contrary to what you think, even though it probably ought to be part of your meta-analysis, boy, I didn't see that one. I didn't see that one either. You're just including studies that support your perspective, right? And that's not going to be really, Again, what you want, for in terms of being a valuable source of information, not going to be credible because it's all the information. It's a meta-analysis. They didn't include a lot of studies that found counter results, right? So that's like
Yeah.
what you said. I mean, crap in, crap out. Yeah.
So, no, I agree. So shifting gears, and aware of time, Matt, but I have to ask this question that a member of mine asked me to ask you, and I thought it was a great question. He said, how would you combine in-season strength training with wrestling, which is obviously a high-intensity sport? How would you program someone's strength workout around, like, a wrestling season?
Yeah, here's a good question. And even like any season. And what we do uh as soon as the athlete goes into season, and I'm speaking from, I had a stretch of time where as the assistant strength coach at Rutgers University. I was actually the first assistant strength coach that they ever hired in the history of Rutgers, which dates back to like 1766,
Oh,
way
wow.
before high intensity training. But but at any rate, and so we did this from we were able to apply these concepts in real life. And one of the sports that I was assigned to was wrestling. Um, in terms of being like, you're the wrestling guy for strength training. So what we did is, when they were in season, we trained them 2 or 3 times a week. And as soon as they got into season, what we do is we'd cut that back to 2 sessions a week. One of those 2 sessions was upper body only,
So I
and one was total body. And the way it worked is that if they wrestled if their meet was on a Saturday, then we try to get them in the weight room as soon as possible after the meet. So if they wrestle on Saturday, if they're back on campus in time depending upon whether they travel or not, but we would train a total body workout. We'd lead off the week, so to speak. That Sunday was a total body workout. And sometimes they have like a Tuesday match or a Wednesday match. We get them again the next day after that match. That was just an upper body. So we're trying to not, because there's particularly the lower body in most sports that's getting worn out from practicing, all the running they're doing. And there may be some weeks though that we can't do that because of the schedule. They just don't have enough recovery. So you try to balance that too in there. You're trying to get their workouts in, but maintain. And that's why the reason why, like the day after they wrestle like a meet, we train them the next day, from a recovery standpoint. If their schedule is such that we can only squeeze one workout in this week, let's do an upper body workout. And maybe it's an upper body workout where we're doing, and we're tracking their data. So we know how many reps they did the previous workout. So maybe we're going to we're trying to do the same number of reps. If we could just maintain their strength in the season, to me, that was progress.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
Especially for like wrestling or for like football. But they have data on how much weight they used and how many reps they did in a previous workout. And it may be that's especially near the end of the season, as you're trying to, you're really sensitive. As the season progresses, you become more and more sensitive to the recovery, where it starts to be, you're getting ready for tournaments, like postseason tournaments, like qualifiers for in case of Rutgers, it was qualifiers for the the NCAA's, the NCAA tournament. So you get what's really sensitive to the importance of recovery as the season goes on. But some of those workouts near the end, like we still want to train them, but maybe it's like, you know what? Let's take 80% of the weight that you used in your last session and try to get the same reps, but with 80%. So instead of 100 pounds for 12 on this exercise, 80 for 12.
I see.
Right? Just to make sure we don't wear them out at that point. Because the most important thing at that point is there's really nothing good that can happen towards the end of the season with the strength workouts. But there's a lot of bad stuff that could happen. And that's like wearing the guys out. And, a sport like wrestling is going to be notorious for overtraining, already. So if you're not sensitive to that in the weight room, that's not going to help their performance. But there's nothing really that you're going to do in the weight room that's going to suddenly turn their season around or lead to better performance. But there's a lot of stuff that you can do that could hurt them. in terms of not necessarily physically hurt them, like getting injured, but just hurt them in terms of their performance because you're just worn down. And then maybe you give it that last week before, for the wrestlers that qualify for the NCAAs, maybe the NCAAs go, traditionally they go Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So maybe their last workout before they go to the tournament is on a Monday, and it's just 80% weight, upper body only on a Monday. And then they're fresh, relatively as fresh as a wrestler could be after you get beat up for 3, 4, 5 months, on a wrestling mat, and then whether it's in a competition or in practice, but so they're relatively fresh for the tournament.
Yeah, thank you. Matt, this has been a lot of fun. We'll start to sort of wrap it up here, but thank you so much for making the time today. Where's the best?
If we have a few minutes, we had talked about this before about the person that we know.
Oh, what, Tim Ferriss?
Yeah.
Well, it's related to wrestling. Sorry, go for it.
I have to repackage the story now, but hey, right.
I apologize.
So I know you mentioned.
I've ruined it, haven't I?
You know Tim, and I heard.
Well, I don't know Tim. I know of his work. I don't know him personally.
Well, I know his name's popped up in the podcast that I heard you do, where you got interviewed, where they switched the tables on you there. But so I knew Tim when he was I've been at Princeton like 35 years, full time. I predate that actually part time, but Tim was an undergraduate student here at Princeton. So the story is, and since his name's out there, I'll do that, but I was going to tell the story without using his name first, but this is like 2000. I think he graduated in 2000. And in, relative to where we're at facility wise, because we've done some renovations over time, but that makes sense to be in 2000. We just opened up that spring semester, we just opened up a renovated facility. But so I'm in the fitness center. My office was in the fitness center, and I'm out on the floor, and I'm just scanning, what people are doing. And I happened to catch this one guy training. And it's like, wow, this guy's training to fatigue. His reps are clean. I mean, this is stuff that you don't see in a typical gym, right? I mean, he's doing all the HIIT stuff, basically. He's a student. I didn't know who he was at the time, but he's a student. So after he got done, I went over and talked to him. I said, how'd you come up with that? I mean, I really, you're doing great workouts. How'd you come up with that? Because, most people aren't thinking along those lines. And the thing, I don't remember if he said they did it. Sometimes every now and then I do get a student like that. I see a student and they tell me that's what they did in high school, or sometimes they come from a high school that, if they came from a certain prep school in New Jersey, I know their strength coach, and their strength coach is from the HIIT community. So I know, they'll stand out, and right, they train a little differently. But, so I don't remember I think what he told me though was I don't know if he read Ellington Darden's books or somebody's book, but it made a real lot of sense to him. So that's how he trains. So I end up taking him through, it turns out it's Tim Ferriss, and I take him through, we agreed for me to work him. I was going to take him through a workout. And I remember we're on a pullover, a Nautilus pullover. It was like a 2ST, I think it was, version, generation 2ST. So we're on the pullover, and he's nearing the end of the set. And I'm thinking in my head, I think he's got about one more rep. So I said to him, you got 2 more reps. In my mind, I'm thinking he's got 1. I'm going to tell him 2. He's got 2 more. See how much I can get out. And he barks, 3 more left.
Of course he does.
I mean, he's approaching with the, he's getting hammered here, and he's brave enough to say he's got 3 more, when he could have just said, I just, 1 more or whatever. Yeah. Even though I said 2, I want to get him 2, and he wanted to top that. So that takes a little, some intestinal fortitude, let's call it that.
That it does.
So it's really cool from that standpoint. And a really hard work in the gym. Great kid too. Great kid. So one of the related story, actually 2 quick related stories to that, is that I'm in the student center one day. This is years after Tim graduated. I'm in the student center, and the way it worked at that point is that if you wanted to print something, there was computer stations, and you'd print from the station, and you'd have to go over to where the printer was. It's called the print release station. And at this point in time, eventually you'd scan your ID card to get access to this, to the printer, to the print release. And at this point, though, you type in your username and for your email address, just your username. And in my case, it's my last name. So I typed that into the release, the little panel there, the console. I typed that in, so it runs through, it accepts it, and it's starting to print stuff out. And meanwhile, a student comes over and he's about to do a print release, but my name stayed there. It stays there for a little bit before it disappears. And he looks at my name and he looks at me and he goes, "Your name is in Tim Ferriss's book."
Right, yeah.
And I go, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, one of his books, he has me listed in the acknowledgments, which I never knew before. But the random luck of me, this kid seeing my name and tying that together, he just said, and then he asked me if I knew him and, this and that. And one of the last anecdote about Tim is that, and this is spring, I think it was spring of 2000. So he gets, he's from Long Island, and I don't remember what town, but he's from Long Island, New York State, but it's called, it's called Long Island.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
And Ken Leishner is also he's got a facility on Long Island. Right. And I think it was in Valley, either Ken was from Valley Stream or his gym, I can't think of the name of I can't think of what he called his gym. Iron Island Gym.
Yeah, okay.
Iron Island Gym. Either he lived in Valley Stream or his gym was in Valley Stream or both. But Tim is also from Long Island. He contacted, and I don't remember if he asked me to coordinate or not. I may have gotten involved because I knew Ken. But long story short is that we arranged for Ken to work out Tim. So Tim goes up there and gets worked out. And in the meantime, and he came back and he told me the story. And the bottom line, I'll spare the gory details. Ken
was renowned for like very, very, very intense workouts with lots of people.
Yeah, sometimes. Like very, very, very. Repeat that like 10 more times. Very, very.
Yeah.
So he put a beating on Tim, right? And two is if you got to think about it. If somebody's working hard for a trainer, it's not all the trainer. Some of it is, but still, the guy still or the gal, they gotta work hard. They gotta be willing to do that. And Tim was willing. He was more than willing. And he told me that, and I'll cut to the chase. At the end of the workout, he said he went and laid on his back. This is Tim. He laid on his back. He had his arms and legs straight, and he could count his pulse just laying there without without checking his pulse in his neck that's how much his body was throbbing. He could take his pulse in that position, right? So in the meantime, I get a call, after this happened, when the dust settles, I get a call from and I won't drop a name, but a strength coach, a buddy of mine, a strength coach from and at the time he was a strength coach at a university in Pennsylvania. And he called me up and he basically said, I don't remember his exact words, but it roughly said that, Dr. Ken beat the snot out of one of your guys. And I paused and like now word's getting around that Ken trained this guy who at the time, he's Tim Ferriss now. He's like a famous guy.
Yeah.
But at any rate, word's getting around. So somebody must have called this guy. It was probably Ken, called up this guy. And who knows who else, where the story's going, but coming back to me at Princeton, he's one of my guys. He's a Princeton guy. And, he said, Tim Dr. Ken just beat the snot out of your guy. And I paused for a second. I said, he's a pretty tough guy. And the guy, and then he said, yeah, I know. He goes, Dr. Ken said that.
All right. Okay.
But first, I didn't know where that was going. Or he said, I thought they were going to make fun of the fact that he went up there.
I see. I see.
But there was respect about, there was
Yeah,
plenty
yeah,
of respect.
both ways. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tim was a great kid, really cool kid.
That's so cool. Yeah, he obviously was a huge influence at the start of my journey in entrepreneurship. His book 4 Hour Work Week challenged a lot of ideas that I had, and I think a lot of people had, and I learned so much from that. And obviously, even the podcast, everything was very much inspired by him. Um, and I want to say, like, there's more than just an acknowledgement in 4 Hour Body about you. I thought there was actually some content related to you. I don't know. Have you checked that?
There, I haven't.
I might
It's
go
been a
check it
while since
out
I
after
thumbed
this.
through the
I've got a
book. There
copy
may
right
be
in front of me.
something. There may be
Yeah,
something more in there.
yeah,
I mean, and I don't remember if he's giving me credit for anything or not. He really doesn't have, because I don't think I taught him anything at all. I mean, he came in, he already knew what he was doing.
no, I'm sure you did. I'm sure you left him
I'm not sure
enough
I
of an
did
impression for
anything.
him to acknowledge you in
No.
his book. That's a pretty big
Yeah,
deal. Yeah.
but it was probably any credit he's giving me is probably all inflated.
By the way, I think he came across Arthur Jones first. I think that's how he knew about that training. I'm pretty sure I remember hearing him
I think he
write about
eventually
that.
would have.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like I
That
don't
was the,
remember when Arthur died, but this is again Tim is like, yeah, at least one I met, he was like 2000, and that was Tim's senior year. I
yeah.
don't know. I think if he got a hold of Arthur, it would have been after that.
Yeah,
After
because I know it like, in 4 Hour Body when he talks about his geek to freak experiments, he is perfect for that book, right? Because he's looking for like minimum effective dose
yeah,
exercise.
that's his
And
stick.
so he
Yeah.
talks about, he obviously mentions you, mentions Arthur Jones, and then he goes into quite a lot of detail on Doug McGuff, Body by Science, and Big
Yeah.
Five,
Yeah.
which was great to see that because you're thinking, oh, this is going to reach so many people and expose HIIT to even more people. It's funny though, because even fast forward to now, it's still, okay, it's been a very famous book. It's sold many copies. I'm sure like, it's certainly helped spread high intensity training, but you look around and you're like, everyone's still doing 2 hours a
Yeah,
session
they are.
6 times a week. Yeah,
Yep.
it's like-
They are.
so anyway,
We owe
before we
that to
do,
we owe that to the internet.
right, exactly. So we
That's
just
where
got
we're
to
getting
keep,
it
we just got
now.
to keep doing our thing, Matt. And now that you're open to certainly doing more of this, I'm excited to see more of you on the internet yourself.
That'd be
So
cool.
guys, if you're watching this, I'll explain for those listening on in their car or whatever. I can describe these books as well. So we've got, this is only 2 of Matt's books. These are the only 2 I have, and they're absolutely fantastic. It's A Practical Approach to Strength Training and Maximize Your Training. I think if you are a exercise enthusiast, these should definitely be in your bookshelf. But they're also amazing manuals for strength training business owners for you and your team. I'm pretty sure that, well, I'm fairly confident that Discover Strength have one or more of your books in their curriculum for their trainers, right? So, yeah, it's just especially A Practical Approach to Strength Training. There's so much good information and instruction how to perform different exercises. That would be a great read for your trainers as well. So go grab a copy of one
So,
or
Mark, so I
both
could
of
just
those
add
books.
just one,
Please
and I
do.
hate to mention this, but that the book they held, that was a 3rd edition. It's in the 5th edition right now.
Oh, is
So
it?
that thing's
Have I got the old one? The 3rd edition
so
is the
the
5th
5th
edition.
edition is like 20 years after that one, and it's got like, it's really beefed up. It's like 40% more content, like literally like 40% bigger.
Oh, great.
And then
I'll have to buy it.
it's hardcover.
Nice.
It came up pretty well. I was happy.
Awesome. Well, congratulations and thank you for your massive contribution to this field. And yeah, so guys, go.
That was a
check that out.
labor of love because I first started doing that. The first edition came out in 1989, and the last edition was, and I retired from writing after that. That was last edition came out in 2018, so it took up a big chunk of my life.
Cool.
Labor of love.
So, okay, so just to reiterate, A Practical Approach to Strength Training, Matt Brzycki, 5th edition, probably on Amazon, I assume. It's probably one of the best places, yeah.
Yeah.
So my only last question for you, Matt, and it's your fault that we've gone over, is when are you going to do a Mike Bradley on it and open up your own studio?
Mike Bradley?
He's opened a studio, didn't you know?
What? Say that again?
He's opened a strength training studio.
Mike did?
Yeah.
Okay. He's a good guy. And I'll tell you what, I made this, Mike spoke at one of Luke's conferences one year. And I actually heard him speak. I've actually heard Mike speak multiple times. There's a hammer train clinic back in the mid 80s. But I'm trying to remember where he was at this point, but he's been a lot of places. Most recently, Florida State University. He was oversaw basketball.
That's right.
Mike is probably, and I don't want to discredit anybody else who I've met over the years. This isn't a slap in the face to anybody, but Mike's probably the most intelligent hit strength coach that I've ever met in my life.
Wow.
He's a really sharp guy. And there's been a number of people I've met over the years, like a Chip Harrison from Penn State, smart guy, Tom Kelso. I don't know if that name rings a bell, but
yeah,
Tom was a college strength coach, and he's also most recently, if he still is, he was like he's a strength coach or a fitness guy for the St. Louis Police Department. Guys like that. So I consider those guys pretty sharp. Teddy Lambrinidis, really, who actually not only have the smarts, but they also applied it in like a college or other setting.
Yeah.
But Mike's like at a little bit, in my mind anyway, Mike's in a little bit different category, like super, super smart guy. And those were the guys if I had questions about, like if I was scratching my head or trying to figure something out, those are the guys I would call up Mike Bradley. I would call up Chip Harrison. I was calling up Tom Kelso's of the world. Those kind of guys.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing coming from you,
really
someone of your stature.
Mike, really good guy.
So maybe something on the cards for you at some point, Matt, in terms of opening your own studio.
I've heard. I've managed facilities for quite some time. That's probably the last thing. So I know all the back end stuff that the general public doesn't see, like what goes into managing a facility.
Of course,
that's not my thing.
Fair enough.
Some poor Ken Leisner used to share some horror stories too from when like he owned Iron Island Gym, where he's the guy. Who's cleaning up the bathrooms? He's cleaning up the bathrooms. He's doing this. He's doing that. I don't do that.
Oh, well, I would challenge you on that as a way of doing it, which makes it much more rewarding and a smoother business. But obviously, every business comes with its difficulties and challenges.
That's all the behind the scenes stuff that,
fair.
People think it's really
cool for you.
They want to own a gym and stuff like that. There's a lot. You better think this through.
Sure. I agree. Yeah. Oh, 100% should be thought through a lot. Matt, thank you so much for making the time. This has been a lot of fun. And
it's been an honor, Lawrence.
Thank you. The honor is all mine.
Keep doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thank you. And just to very quickly recap, so if you're interested in meeting Matt and hearing from Matt and meet loads of awesome strength training experts and practitioners, go check out Strength Forum. Email luke@discoverstrength.com. Luke, if you're watching this or listening to this, I'm sorry if you rather they didn't do that, but I've done it now. Or you can just click the link below and join our free school group, school.com/HIB-free, link below, and you'll get all the details there, and you can DM me and speak to me, and I can certainly point you in the right direction. Go check out Matt's books. Matt, where are we sending people? Is there, if they want to contact you, do you want to share any details there? It's up to you.
I mean, it might actually, it's easy to get a hold of. Like if you have access to a computer, without too many steps, you can figure out my email address. It's public now. It's on the website, Princeton University website. But it's my last name at Princeton.edu. But you can find, even if you didn't know that, you can find it. And you also, my phone number's on, at the Princeton University website.
Oh, don't do that.
But one of the real cool too is, now that you mentioned that, is you had early on you noted that I had written like 500 plus articles and stuff like that. Those are available online for free. They're not asking you, it doesn't ask you you don't have to open up an account, nothing. They're available as PDFs, or almost all of them, because some of them were in a weird format. But if you go, the easiest way, I don't know the name of the website off the top of my head that's hosting that, but if somebody Googles my last name, I have a nephew that works for Google, by the way. But if you Google my last name, and this is where, if you know me, this is going to like crack you up, but the word scholar. So my last name is Scholar, which probably shouldn't end up in the same sentence. But if you Google that, the first hit that comes back, that's the website. When you go to that website, it's in chronological order by year, it's grouped by year. You can find almost every single article that I wrote in a PDF format for free. Again, nothing, it's not going to ask for any information. It's just, you click a link and the PDF pops up. You just download it and you're good to go.
Love that. Thank you. That's
Didn't
great
wanna
to know
mention
that that's
that.
available. Yeah, perfect. Thank you for bringing that up. Awesome. Thanks again, Matt. Really appreciate your time. And obviously, thank you to everyone who is watching or listening to this today. This is Lawrence with High Intensity Business. And thank you for listening. And we'll talk to you very soon.